The Amiga 500 Plus, and like a lot of these machines, this one, which belongs to Allan, it has suffered a little bit of battery corrosion. Allan only recently picked this machine up actually, got it for a very reasonable price, and that's because of said corrosion. You can see that Gary is out of his socket here, and if I just move him out of the way there, well, that is rather nasty and green looking. Now, believe it or not, when Allan first tested this machine, it worked. Well, I think he had to maybe push down on Gary in the socket there, but when doing that, the machine came up, everything worked fine. So despite how this looks down in this sort of area, all those traces there must be okay. I did advise Allan though to give it all a really good clean, and when attempting that, he quite rightly removed Gary from his socket, but unfortunately, given the extent of corrosion, as you can maybe see there, several of the positions in that socket, well, they've lost their teeth. And Gary, well, he's not feeling too well either, because he lost 2 legs there, and there's another one that is just about ready to fall off, I think. Yep, there it goes. So Allan asked me if I can have a look at this for him, replace Gary's socket and give Gary a couple of new legs. No problem, we can do that easily enough. Let's get this board out of the case, out of the shielding, and we'll first of all start by swapping out that socket. Now, I'm fully expecting Mr. Krusty here to put up quite the fight, but to give us the best chance of getting this out without causing any damage, I'm going to try a little bit of flux on the top side here. I'm just going to try and squirt that in there below the socket, so that when I heat the solder from the bottom side, obviously it'll melt through to this side, melt that flux, that'll mix in with it and hopefully help free up the crustiness. Or that's the plan anyway. So I'm just going to go over these first of all and mix in a little bit of fresh solder as well. And then we'll just go over it all again with the Moo gun. I was just about to say, will this come off? But after undoing those last couple, it certainly appears as if the socket has just fell out. Maybe a little bit stuck in this corner though. So let's just flip things over again. And we'll give it a little bit of a wiggle. Yeah, there we are. I don't know if my adding the flux to the top side actually benefited in any way, but that came out really easy. Certainly a lot easier than I was expecting, to be honest. I'll have to try that again in the future, because I may be onto something there. Next job to do is clean all this up. Now, Allan did give this a quick going over himself, but since we've got the socket out of the way now, I'm just going to do it all again. Starting off with white vinegar first of all. I don't want it to spread everywhere on the board, so I'll just introduce it using the toothbrush. I suppose we should probably remove the remnants of that old battery as well. I'll cut that off when he first got the machine. There's a little bit of crustiness around U10 there, the 74244. So we'll just give it a liberal dosing of the white vinegar as well. Don't really see the need to remove these chips though. So that's pretty well worked in there now. I'll just leave that for a couple of minutes and then we'll go over it again with IPA. Right, it's been about 5 minutes, so I'll just give this a quick pat down with the cloth and then we'll go over it all again with IPA. I will just chuck it on this time though, because we want to be sure we chase away all the vinegar, because in the long term, well, that vinegar would be just as bad for the board as what came out of the battery. And then I'll just go over it with a couple of cotton buds just to finish off. Now, just before we do fit the new socket, some of those solder points on those resistors and capacitors there, they're a little bit crusty looking. So just going to hit all this with a little bit of flux. Granted, Probably should have done this before cleaning up, because I'll need to clean up again, but whatever. But yeah, just a little bit of flux on those. And we'll just touch them up with the iron. Well, I would if I could, but the extent of corrosion there means that the solder isn't actually taking to it. Or certainly isn't for a couple of those points. So I'm just going to go over these again with a bit of wick. Just going to wick up any of that rather nasty looking solder, or try to anyway. Just give it another quick clean with IPA. You know what, the more I sit here looking at this, the more I'm thinking I should be scraping off all that nasty old looking stuff, because it is really the only way to clean it properly. Although I am also very conscious that Allan, who owns the board, he did explicitly tell me he wants to leave it as original as possible. But what I'll do is just expose copper around these areas here. I think there was one trace I seen underneath Gary that was quite heavily corroded. That one there. So I'll just expose the copper on that and coat it again, just to make sure that we are cleaning everything up to the best of our ability without getting too carried away. Okay, well that's a little bit more than I initially wanted to take off, but I think it deals with the majority of the really badly corroded traces. Although granted, yes, it was only the solder mask on them that was corroded, but still, best to get that off. A lot of it did flake off really easily, meaning the corrosion is in underneath it. And with the best will in the world, cleaning with vinegar and IPA, some of that corrosion in there will remain and could eventually eat its way through traces, giving you all sorts of faults. So next thing to do will be to treat all this, because we can't leave it exposed. I'm going to go over it, treat it all with some solder first of all. We'll just put a big dollop of solder on the iron, and then with the wick, this should work. We can just drag this over the top of it. In fact, what helps greatly is introducing a bit of flux to the area. So there we are, all coated, but the keen-eyed will no doubt spot that there's even more coated here than there was exposed a second ago. Just while going over it, I did notice a few other spots that probably could have used some attention, so they got scraped off as well, and a coat of solder. We did unfortunately lose a capacitor at that position, so I've refitted that one in place of it. And there is one slight bit of damage just here where the negative side of the battery would have connected. We have lost half of that pad there. But that's where the heaviest of the corrosion was, so a bit unfortunate, but not totally unexpected. On the bottom side, we did a similar sort of thing here. There was one trace coming from the edge connector, one trace here that was quite heavily corroded, so rub that down, give it a coat of solder, and again just some spots here around where the battery connected. The solder points on the edge connector here itself, they were all a bit dull, but all I did there, to be honest, was just give them a quick going over with the fiberglass pen, and that has brought them back. So I think that's about all we're going to do to this 500 plus in terms of dealing with corrosion. Next thing we need to do though is now coat all of the solder. Now it would be fine to leave it like this, but definitely doesn't do any harm to put a coat of something over it. My normal go-to is just nail polish. I've got green or clear, and speaking to Allan, he asked me to go with the clear just so it maintains the look of this. You can see the battle damage. Now yes, I know that in an ideal world you'd be going over all this again with new solder mask, but I don't have any. And yes, this stuff can be a bit of a pain in the backside if you ever need to get it off again, but hopefully we don't need to do that. And at least with this being clear, I don't have to be too precise in where we're painting this on. We'll just do this bit on the bottom as well. And now just before we do actually fit the socket in Gary's position, I thought we'd also fit a new battery holder, the CR2032. So as I said, the negative side is here on the left. That will go in there. And then the positive side, if we sort of turn this thing slightly like that, I'm going to put the positive leg down through that hole. Now, just let me check something very quickly. Alright, so that would be that hole. And that's correct. That's the one that I want to put it through. Actually, no, I'm getting ahead of myself. What we need to do first is cut a trace. We need to cut this trace. And that's because the battery that was there, it was rechargeable, but we need to stop the Amiga from doing that. We're going to be fitting a non-rechargeable battery to this. So I'm going to cut this trace. Let's just confirm we have removed that connectivity. So continuity there and nothing to there. So battery holder will go in like that. Put a bit of blue tack on this just to hold it. And we'll solder up these 2 points. Now if you look closely at the traces on the bottom side of the board here, well, the power is coming to the battery. So that thick trace at the bottom there is going through that via, and then there was that trace on the other side which connects all 3 of those positions. We have cut it at that point, so there's now no connectivity from our positive leg to there. But we do still need to maintain a connection here so that the battery itself can run the real-time clock. And so I'm going to fit a diode. Now if we bring the multimeter in, I put it to the diode test. So we should not see any flow of energy in this direction. Have I put that diode in the wrong way around? Wouldn't be like me. Oh, you idiot. I put the diode in the wrong way around. If it isn't obvious, I am dying with a cold at the minute. And so my head is not really thinking straight. So positive there. Yeah, that's not right. Right, let's try that again. So nothing from there to there. But we do have a flow of energy in the other direction. That's what we want. Okay, time for a new socket. Well, I say new, time for a replacement socket. I don't have any of these in stock, but I did pull this one off a scrap A500 board. Actually from the Gary position on that board. And that will go in there. Just put my bit of blue tack in to hold it again. We'll just do opposite corners. Then remove the blue tack. And just confirm that it is sitting flush against the board and in the correct orientation. Yeah, all looks good. So let's just get it done. Okay, that's everything we're going to do to the Amiga itself. But we do still need to sort out Gary. Rather crusty and nasty looking. First thing for him is a bath. Got this little flimsy container looking thing here. There was batteries in that once upon a time. I'm just going to pour in a little bit of white vinegar and drop in Gary. And I'm going to leave him sitting in there for probably about 5 minutes. Okay, I think that's long enough. It has been about 5 minutes or so. Just give it a very gentle wipe with the toothbrush here. You can see most of that corrosion has now come off. there is still some in there, and there's another leg that's about to go. There's a crack right across the top of that. That's 4 that we now need to fix. This side has fared a bit better. None of those legs are missing. So I'm going to throw this out, just give me a second. I'll just replace that with IPA. I'll drop that in there for another 5 minutes. Okay, that's that done. It isn't looking too bad, other than the missing legs. And to sort that, I'm going to grab it in this thing, if I can. Granted, the missing legs are on the other side, but these all need polished up a little bit as well, so just gently with the fiberglass pen. Then we just need to do the same on this side. That one's going to go as well. I wonder could I recover this? There's another one there as well. I wonder if we put a bit of solder on the top of those two, would that be enough to save them? There's quite a few legs here that are ready to give way. 1, 2, 3, 4. That one, 5, 6. Well, they had to unfortunately come off. So we now need to fit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 new legs to Gary. I have a donor chip here. This is a cash RAM chip, but it's dead. So the plan would be just to nip these off and then solder them on there. Although there isn't a lot of the leg protruding on these. So what I may do is grind off the top of this chip just to expose a bit more of the leg, just to give me something to work with when trying to attach it onto Gary here. There's that. We can nip those off in a minute. On Gary himself though, I've changed out to this grinding stone, and we're going to use this just to polish up the edge of what's left there. Just trying to get it down to bare copper, just to make the soldering a bit easier. Okay, so if we lift one of these, just wiggle this back and forward a bit, this should snap off. Oh, there's one just fell off there. So we'll leave that there for now. We'll put a bit of solder onto what's left of the pin here. And then just with a bit more solder on the iron, let's hold the new pin there and see if this works. And I think that's one on. Yeah, that's nice and strong. Yeah, I think this is going to work fine, although it is going to take me a while. So we'll be back when I get all these new legs on. Well, there we are, one new set of legs for Gary. Will be interesting to see if he still works, because that was quite a bit more than I was expecting to do. I thought we only had to do 4, but wound up doing 15. The legs on that side, I just rubbed them down a bit and give them a coat of solder. Let's get the board back in and let's see if this still works. Okay, put the board back in the case. Everything is hooked up, ready for testing. We do need to put Gary into his new socket though, so fingers crossed he goes back in here without any of that breaking. Okay, all the legs do seem to have went in okay. No, they haven't. No, they haven't. Damn it. Because obviously, the more insertions of this in the state it's in, there is a chance that those solder joints of mine will crack. Oh no, it had went in okay. Oh, I thought there was a bent pin, but there wasn't. So let's just carefully reinsert that again. Again, everything seems okay, so should we just go for it? Power on. We're getting a video signal. It's looking good. I heard a seek. Oh yes. Oh yes. We have a working Amiga 500. Let's test that a bit further though. Stick that disc in. That is Amiga test kit. Memory, 1 megabyte. That is correct. We'll do a quick test. Yeah, that's been round there a couple of times. No issues. Let's just test the controller port. That's good. The CIA and chipset tests. That's good. The real-time clock has been detected and does seem to be working. Interestingly, I noticed that the RAM expansion that was in this card, and Allan has asked us to check this as well because he's not sure how much RAM is on it, but it also has a real-time clock. So this probably isn't a memory expansion for a 500 plus. That said, it will work in here, but will the two real-time clocks not conflict with each other? And given that this does have the clock on it, my guess is that this is just a 512K expansion. You can put a 1 meg expansion easily into the trapdoor on the 500 plus, and because you've got the 8375 Agnes, you can utilize 2 megabytes of chip RAM very easily. But the other thing that we can test now is the serial and parallel ports, and that's because I now have these. Although I will just power off to fit these. But with those two loopbacks installed, we power up again. Well, we should have 3 lights on. And granted, you can't see it, but yes, all 3 are on. That's confirming 5 volt, positive 12 and negative 12 rails going out those ports. They're all good. We can then go into the serial and parallel tests. We run the serial test. That's all good. And the parallel test. That's all good. The other thing, of course, we didn't do was an audio test. And yeah, that certainly sounds okay to me. And the low pass filter, that works as well. Allan did want us to test this. As I say, I do think it is just going to be 512K. No, just 1 megabyte of chip. Quick blast of contact cleaner. Nope, still just 1 megabyte of chip. So yes, the MP502A, this is indeed a 512K memory expansion designed for the Amiga 500, not the 500 plus, hence the real-time clock here. That battery, by the way, that is dead as heck there, so we can take that out. But it should still work in here and just give us an extra 512K of chip RAM. Although at the minute it's doing nothing. Now, it's not a fault with the Amiga, because I've tested my A501. Granted, this is in a bit of a horrible state, but the memory on this, that works fine. And I've tested that in there, and we do indeed get 1.5 meg of chip. This edge connector here though, this is in a rather sorry looking state, and unfortunately I don't really have a replacement for it. I do have one on one of my scrap A500 boards, but it's just as bad as this, if not worse. I'll just go over this with the wire brush pen on both sides and see if that helps. Okay, I've given that a complete going over. Let's see if this makes any difference. This does feel loose on here. Compared to this, that gets a far better grip. But look at the corrosion in there. Oh my god. I probably shouldn't have put that on there. And I'm actually amazed that that went in there, it worked. Because look at the state of that. And let's just see what it does now. Nope, still just 1 megabyte. Hey, 1.5 megabyte chip. So I've been screwing about with this, and it seems it needs to be in at a certain angle just to make connection. I do think a new connector here for the 500 itself, a new one of those certainly wouldn't hurt. But that does seem to be it working. Let's just run a memory test again. And yeah, that's been around a couple of times there. It's fine. So could be the connector on the 500 is a bit dodgy. Could just be the connector on the edge of this memory card. That's a bit dodgy. In any case though, it is just a 512K expansion. You are leaving that other half megabyte on the table in the 500 plus, so I probably will recommend to Allan that he just picks up a modern memory expansion. I think you can get them from Amiga Kit or various other outlets, and they're not that expensive. And at least that would give him the full 2 megabyte of chip RAM. But for the purpose of what we were trying to achieve today, we've got the 500 plus up and running for him. Gary has more or less a full set of new legs. So yes, that probably always will be a little bit flaky in there. But now that it's in the socket, if it's just left alone, I dare say it will be okay. But that's going to be it for this video. So thanks very much for watching. If you enjoyed what you've seen, I would appreciate a thumbs up. Why not hit subscribe if you haven't done so already? Still plenty more yet to come here on CRG. Hopefully I'm feeling better, and I'll see you next time.